After the success I had with a full-page comic feature for Indian Artifacts magazine, which ran for almost 10 years quarterly, I decided that I was going to try to do a series of treasure hunting full-page cartoons for children. And I did a few of them and submitted them to Western and Eastern Treasure magazine that's published a lot of my materials in the past, but they were turned down because I didn't want a continuing series. So I'm going to share these here with you. This is the first time they've been seen outside of myself and Rosemary Anderson, I believe it is, who looked at them at Western and Eastern Treasure. And the first one, as you will see, Adventures in Treasure Hunting, Hunting for Alien Artifacts. In 1976, an hourglass-shaped UFO hovered over Benetton Lake in Oscoda, Michigan. A short way from there, a saucer nest was found at Tuttle Marsh, a desolate area. A saucer nest is where plants have been laid flat in a circle where a UFO has allegedly landed. This would be a good place to hunt for treasure. Treasure hunting for alien artifacts might seem a little far-fetched, but lots of people believe Earth has been visited by people from other planets. If that is true, and they are at all like me and you, then it stands to reason that something will get left behind. Could this be an alien treasure? Careful examination of a landing site may produce an artifact. This silver and gold droplet was found in a saucer nest at Tuttle Marsh near Oscoda and Tawas, Michigan. If it was left behind by an ET, it is a rare treasure indeed. Be sure to take lots of pictures of the site and your finds before you move anything. It is important to preserve as much information as possible. Roswell, New Mexico. A well-known case where a UFO is said to have crashed was in 1949 at Roswell, New Mexico. Artifacts from the crash site were collected by the Army Corps of Engineers. The military base at Roswell released a statement to the media that confirmed the crash, but later took it back, saying it was a weather balloon. Be extra cautious. If you investigate a landing site, be careful. Radiation is often associated with UFO landings. Adventures in Treasure Hunting, Hunting for Alien Artifacts, Part 2, Hunting and Finding Meteorites. What you'll need to hunt them down. You'll need a magnet, magnifying glass, a rock hammer, specimen bags, camera, notebook, metal detector, and a whole lot of patience. Last time I told you about hunting for relics left behind by aliens. This time, let's learn about hunting for another type of visitor from way out in space, and those are meteorites. Meteors travel millions of miles through space, and when they hit our atmosphere, they are called meteorites. Most burn up before they make it to the ground, but those that make it are eagerly sought after by scientists and collectors. A meteorite is fairly rare treasure to find and can be worth a lot of money. How do you know if the rock you found is a meteorite? Most, but not all, are made up of iron and nickel, so will be attracted by a magnet. They also are generally much heavier for their size than a terrestrial rock. Their surface is often worn smooth, but will have depressions like a lump of clay with finger marks impressed in it. Fresh meteorites will have a fusion crust, kind of like the glaze on pottery. The crust is usually black due to the presence of iron. If the meteorite is old, the crust will likely have deteriorated. You can own a rock from the moon and from Mars. In the ancient past, pieces of the moon and Mars have been blasted off the surface by meteorite impacts. Some found their way to Earth. These are among the rarest and most seldom found meteorites. Find one, and you could be rich and famous too. The best way to add one to your collection, though, is to find one online to purchase. Adventures in Treasure Hunting, displaying your treasured finds. How about building a bookcase museum? Any old bookcase will do, but I like tall ones with well-spaced shelves the best. Part of the fun of treasure hunting is being able to show off your finds. If you live in a small house or an apartment like I do, it can be difficult to display the items that you find. I've come up with some really neat ways. You can do more than just setting your finds on the shelf. Be creative. You'll often see old aquariums set out by the side of the road. These can be great display cases, and you can build an entire diorama around one of your finds. I used one to build a village scene out of old log cabin syrup tins that I had dug up a long time ago. Everyone loved it, especially me. Look at book sales for old thick books. When you get them home, cut the inside out, leaving just the cover and spine intact. Carefully measure, and using foam core board, build a box on the inside. This is your display area. You can put shelves in it to hold small items or build a nice shadow box scene. When your friends take out your books to look at, imagine the surprise they're in for. I've done some awesome fossil displays this way. Remember, be creative. There are always kinds of awesome ways to display the things that you have found. Adventures in treasure hunting. Camping at your dig site. If you're going to make a campfire, always use caution. At old dump sites, you can always find something to build a campfire in. An old graniteware cooking pot would serve the purpose. Just look about for what you might find. Treasure hunting is a great hobby, and another great hobby is camping. Combine the two of them together, and you have the best of two worlds. When I go digging, I often pick a site where I can also have privacy to camp. Nighttime is the best of time at the dig site. The frogs and crickets sing out like a choir and sort of just lull you to sleep. Don't have a tent? Not to worry. Just lay that sleeping bag on the ground. Nothing beats looking up through the trees at the shining quilt of stars laid out across the heavens. You can have all the comforts of home. Well, sort of. Dig a hole for a toilet. Locate a nearby stream so you can have running water. If it is during the heat of summer, you can also cool off with a refreshing dip. But don't forget to take the bug spray. Adventures in treasure hunting. There's treasure in them that are old fossils. It is fairly easy to find the fossil remains of crinoid stems, and they will look like round beads with a hole in the center. In fact, some Native American tribes used them as beads. While the crinoid looked like a plant, it was an animal. Like a plant, it had a bulb-like base by which it was attached to the seafloor, a stem, and a flower-like head called a calyx. In the center of the calyx was a mouth where food was taken in. Fossils of the bulb and calyx are more difficult to find and are often fragmentary. Though some spectacular examples exist, I've found it a very good idea to look at collections in books or museums and be as familiar as you can so as to make no mistakes. No matter where you live, chances are very good that you'll run across fossils, traces of ancient life on planet Earth. They are a form of treasure, and a lot of people hunt for them. One of my very favorites is the crinoid that I just told you about, also known as the sea lily. The crinoid lived millions of years ago and was so abundant that it would have looked like acres of underwater flowers. And then the horn corals, brachiopods, and of course the trilobite would have lived at the same time. Adventures in treasure hunting. Some things to be careful of. Nothing is more fun than digging for treasure, no matter what the treasure is. But there are some things to watch out for because there can be dangers. A really great place to dig for old bottles and other treasures is in an old dump. Most towns and cities had them. But there are a few things to watch out for if you want to have a really great time. These little lessons are sometimes very painful. Nothing can ruin a dig faster than biting little ants. They love to make their homes in buried cans. I dug into one recently and not realized it until hundreds were on my shirt and up my pant legs. Ouch! A nearby pond and a quick plunge solved the problem. Watch out for bees too. Dig into their nests and you got big trouble. I've been there. Some bees will swarm all over you and are very difficult to get away from. My encounter, same trip as the ants, called for still another plunge into the pond to get away from the bees. Let's not forget the mosquitoes, a constant pain in the backside, if you forgot the bug spray, that is. The more you sweat, the more they swarm. Look for wild mint. Build a small fire in an old graniteware pot and throw a little on it. It will help keep mosquitoes away, and your dig site will smell a lot better too. Adventures in treasure hunting. Dating your old bottle finds. So you have found some old bottles, and you want to date them. Some might find that odd. After all, where do you take an old bottle on a date? Okay, that was a joke. Not a very good one. But how do you tell how old a bottle is that you have found? Well, there are many ways to tell how old a bottle is. A pontil mark, closure, but the easiest way is by the seam lines. Before the year 1860, most bottles were free-blown and so had no side seams. Some, however, were blown into molds and have a seam line from the base and ending just below the top of the lip of the bottle. From 1840 to 1870, three-piece molds were in use. The bottom half from the base to shoulders, which have no seam, but will have a seam near the shoulder running around the circumference of the bottle. From the shoulder seam are two side seams that run up the neck of the bottle and end below the top of the lip. From about 1805, the side seam runs all the way up through the lip. This is a machine-made bottle, and by 1920, most bottles were machine-made. Everything needs closure, especially bottles. Another way to date antique bottles that you will dig up is the various type of closure. One type of closure is called the Hutchinson blob top. This was where a blob of glass was applied to the bottleneck. These can date back to the 1870s. Another type of closure saw the bottle have a round ball in it. This unusual method makes these bottles highly collectible. Also use caution when you are digging for bottles. Slight chips can destroy the value of them, and they are very easily chipped when you're digging with a shovel.